I'd like to thank the host for inviting me to speak at this particular occasion. It's an honor, and it's very humbling to be on the same podium as Anita Dixon and Karen from the Gold Star families, and it's for a worthy cause. When I'm not looking like this, I look like many of you out there. I'm a member of the American Legion Post 136 in Mulvane, and I'm an AR 136 rider, and I enjoy doing that very much for a very worthy cause, as was mentioned earlier. I want to thank the South High Junior ROTC. You guys did an outstanding job. You girls did an outstanding job. I'm very proud of our honor guard at both the 184th in the Intel Wing at the Kansas Air Guard, and also the 190th Air Refueling Wing. They are very professional honor guards, but I've got to say the young kids from South High, when they presented the flag, that was outstanding and that was precision, and thank you for that. When I asked Ron what he wanted me to talk about, he said talk about the difference between your Vietnam service and your Afghan service. And so I'm going to talk just a little bit about that, and then I'm going to talk about something that is more important. Obviously, my Vietnam service, I was a lot younger. I went to Thailand at 23 years old, and I went to Afghanistan at 59 years old. So a little bit older, a little different war. I never intended to stay in the military for 39.5 years. And when I was deciding what I was going to do back in 1968, I looked at joining the Army, because my dad was a B-17 ball-turn gunner during World War II. And like most people, you kind of want to do what your dad did. So I thought about that for a while. I said, I want to be a helicopter door gunner. But then I said, you know, John, you're only going to be in the military for 4 years. That's it. So get some training where you got a career when you get out. So that's why I joined the Air Force. And I did get the training that I wanted, but I didn't get out. I stayed in and then joined the Guards later. The difference between Afghanistan and my Vietnam, as I mentioned, I went to U-Bahn, Thailand as a young airman. And I was relatively safe in U-Bahn. It was across Laos, was about 30 miles from Laos and 15 miles from Cambodia, but a very safe place to be compared to being in country in Vietnam. So I spent my war period in a very safe environment. Afghanistan, I chose to be different. I joined the Air Force because I wanted to be trained in some technical training. And I was not going to get that, I didn't think, in the Army. And I wanted to kind of avoid the Army also when I thought about it. But as I went through my military career, and I met a lot of these families who had sons killed in action, and when you talk to those families, at some point in time you realize that they're just something that you have to do. And for me that was to go to Afghanistan or Iraq. And I had the opportunity to go either one, and I chose Afghanistan for a reason I'll talk about in a little bit. So I kind of ended up starting my career avoiding the Army, and ending my career being part of the Army. In Afghanistan, I was part of Joint Task Force Phoenix, which was comprised of members in the Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marines. So in our task force, we had all branches of service. It was commanded by an Army general, and we were located at Camp Phoenix in Kabul, Afghanistan. Prior to going, I had to go to, as a young airman, or not a young airman, as an old airman now, to combat skills training with the Army. There was an Army, I went to Fort McCoy, and they put me through a shortened version of infantry training, if you will. And I think that was more to protect them than it was to protect me. They're going to let this airman loose amongst us with a gun, so we're going to teach him how to use that gun and several other things. Probably one of the most important things that came out of that was my combat skills, combat lifesaver course. Everybody in Iraq and Afghanistan is a combat lifesaver, and I think that's why our survival rate for a wounded is so much higher, because of immediate medical attention. And also, we looked at our helicopter. I know we've got some medevac folks here, and they've gone a long way with that, a lot more emphasis on that. So our response time out of Afghanistan and Iraq was literally in the seconds almost to get a helicopter to somebody. And I know when we started advanced operations down in southern Afghanistan, there was not that medical helicopter response, and so that time was not there, and the Air Force didn't want to put it there because it's of cost. And Secretary of Defense said, yes, if it's in Iraq and they have that, then we're going to have that response time in Afghanistan. And so several rescue and recovery units went into southern Afghanistan and had that. When I was on my way to, or before I went to Afghanistan, I told a friend of mine, I said, I'm going to go to Afghanistan. And the response was, why? Is it the cost of living cheap there? And I looked at the individuals just for a moment, and I wanted to say, don't you understand that we're in a war in Afghanistan? And I just let it go, and what I really wanted to say was, it's not the cost of living, but it's the cost of dying. That's what it is. But I let it go. But I'm going to talk about the cost of dying tonight. Got the battlefield cross over here on to my right. Now, we've all seen pictures of that throughout time. But until you're on the battlefield, and you're going to a memorial service for somebody you ate dinner with 2 days ago, it doesn't hit home until you're there. And one of my most, ones I remember the most was it was a beautiful day. It was 5th of January. It was about 5 o'clock in the evening. It was snowing very lightly. And to me, it was a beautiful time to look at the snow-covered mountains. But yet I was going to the memorial service, a fallen comrade ceremony for one of my friends. And I've talked about him a lot. He was a South Carolina Army Guardsman. And I just read about him in the news the other day. They named the highway after Sergeant Hill. And his son just died in a car wreck on that same highway, named after his dad. So it's the cost of dying. It goes on and on. Our goes to our mothers here today, and it goes to our families, knows what that cost of dying is. Anita said we had 74 names going on memorial. Those family members knows what that cost of dying is. So tonight, today, it's not the cost of living, but it's the cost of dying. Thank you.